In this session, we're going to be talking about how to be a great federal buyer in 2024. Obviously, my intended audience is actually the federal government, but the tips I'm going to give will be good for industry as well, because these are things we should be paying attention to, things maybe we can go ask the government for if they're not giving it to us. I'm going to be teaching today's session as if the person watching, as if you were a federal buyer, because I'm really hoping I can help you move forward, but we can share these lessons with our buyers as well. I've done over 1,000 training videos in the last 5 years, but in the last 2 years, I've done over 400. And we really focus on two main messages, right? How we can do our job as industry, right? Especially small businesses, how we can do our job to support our government customers. The other thing that I really lay as a foundation of the training is that I don't want you blaming the government. Don't go talk about Congress and getting more laws or agencies and their goals and blah, blah, blah. Instead, we industry take responsibility for our own success. When we take responsibility, not blame, then we put ourselves in control, right? Taking responsibility gives you control. And that's what I teach all the time. But for one day in all this training that I do, I want to kind of put the responsibility back on the government's shoulders and say, look, you absolutely should be doing stuff that can improve the relationship, the buyer-seller relationship out there. So that's what we're going to be talking about today in how to be a great federal buyer in 2024. I'm going to cover down in today's session, I really have 2 slides, a lot of information on it, but 2 slides. And the first thing I'm going to talk about are just 10 things that discourage small businesses as we're out there trying to sell into the federal market. The second thing is 10 things buyers can start doing today that will improve the relationship and also help you be able to find more buyers, right? The government says they want to improve the supplier base. They say that this is a national security issue, the supplier base, the industrial base. And so these 10 things buyers can start doing, and they can start seeing the success that they want, and we can start seeing the success that we want. Okay, and by the way, quick side thing just for Cecilia or Gus, if you're out there, if you could text me, just let me know you're seeing, because my phone is showing me nothing at the moment. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market in the IT professional services space. I've sold to almost every single big agency out there, certainly the top ones like VA, HHS, DOD, multiple services within there. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. Okay, so we got about 23 minutes to talk about 20 things, 10 things that discourage small businesses, and then the next slide has 10 other things. And so, by the way, these are in no particular order. I think I just put them in order of visual size, so you'll see what I mean in a second. But the first thing that I have here that buyers do that discourage small businesses is just telling us to watch Sam for opportunities. We call up the government, we call you up and we say, hey, you know, we want to talk to you about your agency and doing business. We're supposed to do our homework. We want to learn more. You just need to watch Sam for opportunities. It's like, yeah, no kidding, right? We know that already. Everybody since the day we were born as a business has told us to look into Sam. And frankly, everybody else has told us if you see it in Sam, it's too late. And so that's a thing that discourages us from wanting to work with your agency, is when you just basically blow us off and say, watch Sam for opportunities. Another one that discourages small businesses from participating or wanting to participate is when you make an RFI or sources sought response to be similar to the quality and quantity or size of an RFP response. Sometimes these RFIs and sources sought come out asking us to talk about even price sometimes in there. And it's crazy. It's like we have to justify all this stuff within an RFI and a sources sought just for you to sit there and say that you're going to set it aside or not set it aside. Well, that basically is an RFP response. And the reason it's hugely discouraging is because you never ask larges to do that. Larges never respond to that stuff early on. They just wait, let us do all the work, right? That's a huge burden on small businesses. And that's why we sometimes shy away from RFIs as sources sought. I hear this from the government all the time. We don't get enough industry participation. Maybe if you make it a little easier for us, we would participate. And I've got suggestions on how to do that. Another big one that I really think is discouraging to small businesses, especially those of us who are actively trying to get out and learn about you, learn truly about your requirement, your challenges, your goals, et cetera, before the RFP drops, right? And so the acquisition life cycle is this long period, as you know, and the RFP is dropping over here, but shifting to the left is all this time you could be talking to us. But many of you sit there and ignore us. You're just completely silent. Oh, I'm not going to talk about anything. And that's just not only crazy, it's just counter to what the government encourages its buyers to do. Buyers are encouraged to reach out to industry, but when you're silent during the acquisition life cycle, that makes us feel like we didn't have to do anything. We just wait for it to hit Sam and then respond. But if you see it in Sam, you're kind of too late, right? And then the idea of saying, if you see it in Sam, it's too late, is that means we missed out on all this time to be able to talk with you, help you shape those requirements, to really talk about, hey, the PWS tasks are not quite clear. So being silent during the acquisition lifecycle is hugely discouraging because it makes us feel like you've wired it for somebody else. You've already got your winner in mind. Why should we try? I'm not saying that's the way it is, but I'm saying that's the way I feel, right? Number 4, something that buyers do that discourage small businesses is meeting with us without doing any research on us ahead of time, right? It's irresponsible for us to go to a meeting with you and go, what do you sell? Right? And literally you guys get people like us coming to you saying, what do you sell? It's like, didn't you look at our website? You could have figured it out. But it's the same with buyers when they're meeting with small business sellers. Take 2 minutes to look at our DSBS profile, which, the GovCon chamber is really pushing everybody to get done. Take a minute to look at my LinkedIn profile or my website, and you will see what we do. You will see some of our stories, et cetera. And I get that there's some businesses out there that just do a poor job communicating that on the internet, et cetera. But there's many of us who are doing 20, 30, $40 million a year. And there's a lot to look at. And when we get to you, instead of having done the research and knowing that we're farther along than maybe the average pure startup, you sit there and say, you need to register in SAM or something. It's like, oh, you're killing me. Could you please just research us before you meet with us? The next one is acting like a gatekeeper instead of a liaison. This is a personal pet peeve. I think all 10 of these are personal pet peeves of mine. But this one here is when we call, it's discouraging to us when all we feel like is that you're trying to keep us away from the program office. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody else, but my all-time favorite small business professional for this way that he acted was this guy, Matt Burkett, who's not there anymore, but he was at Crane, Indiana, and it was a combination of him and what his leadership and program office colleagues were doing, where he would stop us, smalls, from coming through until we learned and had a conversation with him. But he would talk to you and go, oh, okay, here's what you need to do. And as soon as you get that stuff done, I'm going to make an introduction and I'll schedule the meeting for you internally. And it was this idea of he was not being a gatekeeper, he was being more of a liaison, and he was setting both sides up for success. The small business coming in, don't fail by being unprepared. And the program office, I don't want to waste their time either. And so don't act like a gatekeeper. Instead, help us figure out how we come in, especially the companies that are doing 5, 10, 20 million as small businesses. These are exactly who you want in there talking to the program office. Number 6, thing that discourages small businesses from participating is keeping the market research results to yourself. And this happens a lot. My made up fact on the spot right now is 80-90% of the time. And I would say perhaps even higher. Rarely do I see a federal buyer, share the market research results. I don't need you to tell me which companies responded. I don't need you to tell me what they said in the response. But if you sit there and say, we did a sources sought, they were all due by this date, the very next day, I can tell you I got 100 responses or 5 responses, whatever it is. And this many came from women-owned small businesses. This many came from here. Why on earth keep it to yourself as a secret? I know so many companies that are hub zone companies that they're not going to team up on writing, but they all go, hey, let's see if we can push this together towards a hub zone set aside. They respond, and many of them feel like we all responded. How come it's not being set aside? It's so easy for you to sit there and just share the market research results, the sanitized results, right? The clean results. But those basic numbers that say we got 100 responses back and this is what they look like, that helps us go, oh my gosh, 10 of my friends who are all hub zones who said they responded didn't respond because the government just told me they only got one response from a hub zone and I know it was me. That's an example, right? But don't keep those market research results to yourself, because then we wonder what's happening. And again, all these things kind of make us feel like things are wired against us. Number 7 is sharing. This is just a little silly one that is so discouraging. When we look at a website and we're trying to do our homework on the small business office website that you might have, and we see you sharing FPDS data. We're like, oh, here's expired contracts. But all it is a spreadsheet download from FPDS that you throw on your website. Like that is helpful. It is not helpful. We can go to FPDS on our own. We have been told by everybody who mentors us, go to FPDS, go to Sam, learn, right? We've done that research. Tell us something we don't know. Perhaps you have the expired contracts and a point of contact. That could be really helpful, right? And so sharing data that's just coming from another tool that we have access to, it's not helpful and it's discouraging because it makes us feel like you don't care enough to put real data out there. Number 8 is, this is the thing that discourages small businesses, is when you keep putting program offices who are sharing their briefings, they got slides, they're out there talking about what they're doing, what they want to do, et cetera, but they're only doing these briefings, one, in person. Remember, this is a country that goes from Guam to the US Virgin Islands and everywhere in between. We can't be getting to every in-person thing. And then the second one is it's being done at places like AFCEA or NDIA, these big, huge 100-year-old organizations that were built by the larges. If that's where you're going, that's kind of discouraging to smalls. We smalls go in there, we're like, oh, we got to go in there and participate, and we can put a smiley face on. But the reality is you should be sharing, I would submit, the program office briefings virtually so that everybody has access to it. The slides should be instantly available. Like I'm doing this training right now. The replay will not be available soon. It will be available immediately. That's how it works today. So you can make those things available. A slide deck, if you share them, I don't share mine, but if you share them because you're trying to reach the industry, that can be put out there immediately so that someone can have access to it. But consider that stuff as it's really discouraging when you have to keep going to these events. Plus, it's costly. Number 9, the thing that discourages small businesses from participation is caring, in my opinion, caring more about your vanity metrics than about reality. And what I mean here is this idea of constantly trying to say, hey, look how well we did on goal. I literally saw somebody put out, a government agency put out how they had spent more money this year over the last year or something. It's like, yeah, no kidding. The entire government spent more money. It's impossible for you to not spend more contract dollars. I put out a whole big article about this. You can check this out in my newsletter, but where the government likes to give itself vanity metrics, we spent $28 million on prime contracts with woman-owned small businesses. That sounds cool, but it's not really, because less than 1 million of it, less than 1 billion of it was set aside to women-owned small businesses. So if it wasn't for women-owned small businesses or women-owned businesses going out there and getting that money by competing in the full and open and competing in other areas, then the women-owned small business program would be even worse off. So the vanity metric is to say, oh, $28 billion. But the reality is that 1 billion is set aside. There should be 10 billion is set aside. When you do that, then it's reality, and then you're not discouraging us. I talked about it being gaslighting. It's a horrible thing. And the last thing I put down here, as you can see my nice smooth ski slope there, is making us use different supplier portals. This is just really discouraging to small businesses because we feel like we don't know where to be. If you're not in the know, then you're not there. I put together a directory, my team and I put together a directory of all the supplier portals we know. There's DSBS, right? SAM and DSBS, that's the main one. Then there's HHS has got its own, and EPA has its own. NavAir has an email list that you send in, and there's like 50 other federal agency supplier portals. While it's cool for me to tell small businesses, hey, get in there and be in front of your competitor, it actually is really discouraging to think that I have to keep registering at all these different places when basically it's one customer. And more importantly, no one really asks for anything unique. They all go, are you a woman-owned business? Are you a hub zone? What do you sell? It's like, that's literally what's in SAM and DSBS. And so that's discouraging first, when you make us use many different portals, but second, when you don't have a list of where they're all at, so we small businesses can go in and go check, 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 check. If I have to do it, at least make me not have to search for each one like some sort of Easter egg that's out there. All right, so those are 10 things that discourage small businesses. Here's kind of a different way, but 10 things buyers should start doing. Again, no particular order here. I just made them in the size of the bullet I made. But these are 10 things I would recommend you start doing that could be really helpful to industry, for us to be able to do our job better, but for you to be able to find smart, or not smart, but qualified industry partners out there. So the first thing is post on LinkedIn. And so here, what I mean by this is, just this morning I watched PEO MLB, I think it was. So out of the Navy, out of NAVWAR, PEO MLB, they put out this document talking about what they're looking for from industry. And they're saying, hey, this is what we do in here. This is our focus. This is a brand new 2024 document. And I'll post it later on this afternoon to get a broader visibility. But you can be doing more of this. You can post on LinkedIn, have a conversation with your leadership and with the public affairs folks and say, hey, we should delegate this posting out to anybody. As long as it's public information, anybody should be able to post it. And you can learn about how to post on LinkedIn later. But when you do that, you reach a much bigger audience, because we're all social media folks now. The next one that I recommend you should start doing is something that I call a set-aside call. We did over 500 of these. And these set-aside calls, the idea of them is that you take an opportunity that is in the sources sought and market research phase, and you can kind of think of it like a mini industry day. You have those big formal industry days, but they're so convoluted and everybody's so worried about things. Instead, you just have this mini set-aside call. Anybody can jump on. And in that call, you just highlight, hey, here's some of the requirements. And you're trying to encourage industry participation by sharing a little bit about the opportunity. Here's some of the task areas, et cetera. You're actually generating interest in the opportunity, but you're also letting us know. And then you give us a chance to ask some questions. We got 30 minutes, not an hour, not 2 hours, 3 hours, just a 30-minute set-aside call. 10 minutes to talk about the opportunity and 20 minutes to sit there or 15 minutes to talk about any questions. Anybody has a question, feel free to ask. You can do this on Teams or Zoom or whatever, and have auto transcription, be able to dump that right into a place that you can make publicly available. So make that information publicly available. Again, you could literally do this on LinkedIn, by the way, where the replays are instantly available, the transcriptions readily available. So then it's a fair playing ground out there, but you're starting to promote this to the industry. When I did this, and we did 500 of these, we had massive traction, which I'll talk about right here. So the next thing you can consider doing is in the sources sought in particular, use a sources sought template. I know in GSA, there's like a level where people do that, but that's a little bit more brutal because it's tight. But this idea of don't make us write 5 or 10 or 50 page sources sought and RFI responses, right? Especially with sources sought, you're trying to see, are there qualified HubZone businesses that can do it? How much information do you need to know in order to make that decision? Put that on this template. I did this with the State Department for a $200 million deal. And in 24 hours, we got almost 200 people responding, $200 million deal, almost 100 people, companies responding to the sources sought for the State Department's need. They reached out to me because they weren't able to reach HubZones, and I helped them. And the only thing I asked them is, can I use a template? We put a template together. We got the word out, and companies were able to respond right away. And then they set aside this $200 million opportunity to HubZones. And that sources sought template was easy on industry, but it's also easy on the government because it made it so easy for them to evaluate. They're like, you know what it's like. Basically, you're triaging it. Are you qualified, not qualified? And here was a stack of HubZones. And they went, we can set it aside because we can trust HubZones will show up at the RFP. All right, number 4. Tell us where you look during market research is something buyers should start doing. Federal buyers should start doing. I teach this all the time. Hey, federal buyers look here, here, and here. But I'm teaching the entire federal government. I don't know where you look necessarily. And it would take you 2 seconds to put a top 10 list. When I do market research, this is how I do it. When we do it in our agency, this is how we do it. And don't talk far or any of this other stuff. Talk reality, right? The first place we look is incumbents, is what I say, right? Second place we might look is we've got a folder that we have of people who have sent us capability statements. So I look through there and see if I can find somebody. Tell us how you do the market research so that when we're doing our marketing activities, we make sure we are where you look. That's the biggest thing, right? We just want to do what you want us to do. And what you want us to do is to be where you look, not to be over here going, how come you can't see me? We want to get right where you're looking. So just tell us that process. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Number 5, this one is huge. And I wish I had actually put a slide in here with an example. I often share USDA's map, but something buyers can start doing right now is to share a graphic roadmap of your procurement process, the acquisition lifecycle, right? A process diagram, whatever you want it to be. I have an Air Force one that I'm going to share out, but it's like pages and pages and pages, but it's really good because I can see the process. But USDA did the best one I have seen. It really is this snake-like roadmap that has 4 different layers, but it just shows from basically when an idea comes through, what the government does in the acquisition lifecycle. And how we in the industry use it is we try to align our activities to that. We want to get in there and be engaging with you, or maybe share a white paper or whatever it is that helps us participate with you along the journey. It helps us learn more about the opportunity. We don't want to be engaged with you when you don't want us to be, but when we shift left of the RFP, there's a lot of room for us to get engaged. So share that roadmap out, teach us how you buy on the inside. That's how you make us better partners on the outside. So number 6, sixth thing a buyer can start doing right now is to create just an easy Q&A process for industry. We have questions all the time, and it's just too burdensome on the government to pick up the phone and answer our questions all the time or have a meeting, because you can only meet with so many people. Plus you got all this other responsibility, but you can create an AI generated approach. You can create, and I've got like 100 different companies I can point you to who would love to work with you, but you can create just a basic web form approach where somebody submits a question, and any question you submit, we'll be happy to answer it as long as we can make it public. And so that's the gear, right? If somebody like me wants to get you to answer a question, and really I'm just trying to find out, hey, what contract vehicle are you thinking about for this opportunity? That shouldn't be a secret. Right now we're thinking about this, this, and this, right? But we reserve the right to change our mind at any point. That's fine. But if you put that information out there, you start engaging industry, but you take this off of your shoulders and you put it somewhere where not only can I get my questions answered, but 100,000 other businesses have access to that running list of questions. There's ways to organize it to make it easy. Apps like this can be built inside of a week to be able to handle that process. Number 7, on what buyers can start doing to make life easier for themselves and for us, is to have ad hoc industry days. And what I mean by this with program offices is stop trying to plan these out. I look at government agencies, they're planning it way out. I literally do a new training every single weekday, including January 1st, July 4th, and I'll get 100 people in there. You don't have to do that many, right? But grab a program office. And if you do this on a weekly basis, you can do 50 industry days where you're talking about this office and this office and this office. I look at NAVC in Crane, Indiana, Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane. They have, I don't know, 2 billion or 9 billion, I can't remember, to spend, but they got a lot of people. All you have to do is line up those 50 people and say, hey, can I get a volunteer to talk about what you do and what you might like to see from industry? They've already done that once in these big APBIs, but if you do ad hoc ones, it allows industry to constantly be aware of what you want. Number 8, I'm just pushing through because we end at 12:30 here. Number 8 is to build a helpful website for research. 80% of the websites I go to are just really poor. Literally, I just looked at a website this morning. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Defense, no offense, but Defense Health Agency. I looked in there. I'm like, oh, cool. They have a couple of briefing decks. This is information I might be able to share. 2016. All 4 of them were from 2016. I don't know how many years that is, but it feels like a lot more than one, right? It was 7 years ago. That's how old the information is. It's like, well, that's how much you care about communicating with industry. But if you put in things like, here's our top contract vehicles, don't make industry, especially smalls, have to work hard at FPDS to figure it out. Just tell us, hey, these are the top ones we use. And then put in strategic plans and budget documents. It doesn't necessarily have to be the documents. You just point so that we don't have to spend forever as a small business navigating your entire website. You can go, you know what? This is my homework page. If you want to work with my agency and talk with me, start here by looking at my website and understanding it. Number 9 is publish the prime. So if you have large prime contractors who are supporting your agency, then put the program manager or subcontract managers point of contact, their name, number, and email. Make it easy for us to reach in and try to subcontract. A lot of them will use excuses like they can't find smalls, but they're making it hard for us to try to say, here we are. SBLO information is not good because that's a generic person for the entire company compared to a program manager or a subcontract manager on that contract will really be able to decide whether I'm a fit, for example, on that. And the last thing is tell us what criteria is going to be used for a set-aside determination. If you put something out for sources sought, how are you making the determination to go HubZone or woman-owned small business? What do you need to see besides past performance? Do you need 20 women-owned small businesses to show up in order to make that determination? Let us know what's the criteria you're using. That way we can respond accordingly, or we can go out to industry and say, hey, everybody show up who can qualify or bring a quality response. When you give us the criteria, we become an active participant in your overall goal of finding industry partners out there. Here's what I want you to remember as I go forward really fast. Federal procurement should be win-win. The government should certainly win and industry should win. We should work together to make that happen. Stop practicing those things that I put on 2 slides ago that's discouraging industry participation. You can stop half of those pretty darn quick. The last thing is, if you're interested in me helping you and the GovCon Chamber helping you, no cost for an agency who wants to reach out. We'll put in place a memorandum of understanding, and I can walk you through how to implement some of those changes really fast. I end at 12:30. It's 12:30, so just remember this. Government contracting with the government or with the sellers, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.